everyone, welcome to Chasing Winners, your number one show, DFS gambling related sports talk. We've done some UFC, we've done some NFL. This is NFL. As always, I'm joined by the two guys, Kyle Mastoloni, JP Lyon. Kyle, you first, say what's up.
What's up, everybody? Ready for another week of NFL? It looks like, based on my picks, I'm going to be the Jeff Fisher of this group, always just hanging around 7-9 and 8-8. So hopefully I do a bit better this week.
And JP, looks like you're going to be the Vikings of the picks this year, right?
Well, I'm clearly learning that I can only win 5 games in a week, and I can only win one of my best bets. So apparently picking 16 games is not good for me, and I should just pick 5.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into your Vikings in a little bit, but we talked about that last week on the pod. I mean, that was almost the most obvious cover ever, but the way that game finished was that was drunk from the start. But we'll get into that in a little bit. As always, before we start, some housekeeping stuff. Guys, just make sure wherever you're listening, rate, review, subscribe, give us a like, share our video. It helps us everywhere, whether it's on YouTube or it's a podcast version somewhere. Helps us keep this free for you guys, give you guys some hopeful information, some entertainment as we get along through this NFL season. It is week 3. We are recording on Thursday afternoon. This will probably be out right around game time of Thursday night. JP, you put out a video on your Twitter as you did last week, and as you'll probably keep doing, Viking fan JP on Twitter. What were the thoughts kind of combined between the three of us for the game tonight?
The thoughts were, I'm not happy about having to go to the career fair yesterday. This is why we are recording tonight. Still don't have a job, probably won't. So all of us were on the Texans +8 here. Excited to see Millie football, Mills Mafia. Very excited to see the long neck quarterback in action tonight. I'm currently looking at Christian McCaffrey, 2+ touchdowns tonight, +150. Could be an interesting play there. And then we didn't have a lot of other thoughts besides that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle and I both lean towards the Texans. I'm not sure Kyle's going to bet it because Kyle bets every single Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night game. But is it – Kyle, let me ask you this. If this was Sunday at 1 o'clock, would you be betting the Texans tonight?
Probably not. Maybe throw them in a teaser, but it's a primetime game. I have to pick a side. That's just the Kyle Mastoloni rule of doing things. So Houston +8 tonight.
No, I'm with you. And like I said, I think we both leaned Houston, but it wouldn't be a strong enough bet that we would, put out if it was middle of the week or I guess Sunday, middle of Sunday. Guys, let's get into Sunday. Let's do it. Let's recap last week first before we get into this week. I asked you this last week, Kyle. I'll ask you this again this week. What's your biggest takeaway from last week, whether an overreaction people are reacting to or something that happened that people aren't talking about enough, or just your biggest takeaway from the week overall?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway of the week, I mean, the Ravens are as good as we thought they are on this pod. I mean, they hung with the Chiefs the whole time and then ended up getting the win in the end. I mean, will that happen in the playoff? Would that happen in a playoff game? Don't know, but can't say that. It was an intense primetime game, and the Ravens pulled it out.
Yeah, and obviously I'm a little biased with that, but I do think the Ravens could almost end up being that team. We talk about how they have so many injuries right now and so many guys on IR and guys that could potentially come back towards the end of the season. I could see the Ravens having a good but a not great season and being one of those teams that start to get all of their guys back one by one. You get one back in week 14, one back in week 15, one in 16, and kind of by the time you get to the playoffs, the Ravens have snuck in as a wild card. They're, 10-7. They're 11-6, something like that. They've got a good enough record to get in, but they're that team that you don't want to play. JP, the one thing I'll say about that, and you tell me if this is me being biased or this is me being crazy, but if there's ever going to be another Lamar MVP season, it's got to be this season without all of the defense, without all of the weapons. We saw Sunday night. At some point, if the Ravens are going to win games, Lamar just has to take over the entire game, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, if they're going to win games, he's going to be the reason why. And the week before, if they're going to lose games, he's probably going to have a factor in that as well. So if they pull off a 12-5, 13-4 season, then he's going to be in the MVP conversation for sure.
And I think the key with Lamar is, we always talk about this, is there's always going to be negatives to the pros of, there's always going to be cons to the pros of what Lamar is. But when you look at it, the cons very rarely will outstack the pros. You know, we've seen a game like even against the Raiders, obviously had some turnovers later in the game, but he was kind of the reason they were in that game. And I think kind of it's almost Sunday night was that perfect game for the people that hated Lamar. They had a quarter and a half, maybe a half of, you know, guys, look at this guy. He can't throw a football. He's running back. He can do whatever. He's, you know, the only reason they're somewhat in the game is because the Chiefs can't stop the run, but they're kind of still stopping them. He had 2 bad picks. When you look at it, if you watch the game, obviously the first one, Sammy Watkins fell. Kyle's theory, and I'm all about it, is that Sammy Watkins is still on the Chiefs payroll, and that was on purpose. I don't hate that thought, you know. I mean, I'll take that. But even when you look at it, he had 1 bad pick where they probably shouldn't even been throwing anyways. He had a bad pick where Sammy Watkins fell. But at the end of the day, he's the reason that they're in games as opposed to out of games. I'm going to use this to get to the first game that we're going to talk about on Sunday, because I think the key in this game, we've got Chicago at Cleveland. Cleveland's -7. For the first time this year, JP, Justin Fields is supposedly starting this game. They say if Andy Dalton's healthy, he'll start, but it sounds like Justin Fields is the starter because Andy Dalton will not be healthy this week. Justin Fields can be that game changer potentially. Are you buying this 7-point dog at Cleveland, or are you taking the Browns -7?
So I'm not taking a side here. I'm going to be on the over 46 points. Cleveland's shown that they can put up points in all their games this year. The Bears didn't hold the Bengals to 17 points last week because their defense was great. Burrow threw 3 picks, and that some of that's on the Bears defense, some of that isn't. Fields was 6 for 13 last week for 60 yards and a pick. I think he regresses to the mean here. I think he can definitely recover and play better than he did then. He made some good throws that his receivers didn't make the plays they needed to. Shout out Profits. So I think I'll be on the over 46 here. It seems low, so I'll take it.
Kyle, you going after the spread of the total here?
I'm going after the spread. Here we go. It's the Justin Fields show this week. Hopefully, I mean, I think honestly he gives them a better chance to win than Andy Dalton does. I mean, I'm on the Bears. I'm actually on the Bears +7 here. I think they could definitely cover 7 against the Browns. It's gonna be closer than people think. I mean, the Browns typically play closer games, especially this year, it seems like. So yeah, I'm on the Bears +7 here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do lean the total of the over, I should say, if I'm going for the total. But yeah, I'm with you. I like the Bears here +7. I think it's just Cleveland's one of those teams that kind of doesn't always blow people out, and the teams that they do are like kind of the bottom barrel teams. In Chicago, I don't think is kind of there. You saw Houston kind of stick around 10 points with Cleveland last week. I just think the Bears are good enough that at the very least maybe they're down 2 touchdowns and then they're kind of going for a backdoor. I think there's more likely, if you're looking at a backdoor, coming from the Bears as 7-point dogs than the Browns. Kind of, let's say if they're up a field goal or something, scoring a touchdown or something late to cover. So I'm on the Bears as well. All right, let's get back. We were talking Lamar Jackson. The Ravens 7.5-point favorites at the Lions. That over under is 50. Kyle, I'll start with you on this one.
So first off, I mean, we heard in the chat, you might have dropped it in there earlier, that Lamar wasn't practicing. What's up with him?
He's got a little stomach ache. I think it's just Lamar seems we're definitely at this year at this point where, like, if Lamar walks in the facility and like coughs, Harbaugh's like, go home. Like that's kind of where I think we're at. Like we don't need that right now. And I think that was just kind of a, preliminary. If this is the playoffs, I'm sure he's practicing. I'm sure it's not a big deal. He said he's good to go Sunday, no issue there. So yeah, I think you're looking at obviously a Ravens with Lamar as 7.5-point favorites.
Got it. Then I think you have to lean the Ravens side. I mean, I just think this Detroit Lions team is not very good. I mean, they had a good showing in the first half last night, and then once the Packers made the adjustments, Aaron Rodgers got going, they got blown out of the water. So, I mean, I think the Ravens could definitely cover a touchdown here.
JP?
Monday night game, I didn't feel like the Packers beat the Lions necessarily. It felt more like the weather started to to weigh on the Lions, and they couldn't execute in the rain. So at Ford Field, I'm thinking if they keep scoring points like they did that night, I'm going to take the over 50 here. Hopefully Lamar's hip isn't too sore from flipping into the end zone, and we can keep rolling with him. Glad I dropped Philip Lindsay and picked up Daniel Jones in case he can't go.
Yeah, no, but I'm with you. I would say I'm with you on that total though, because I think this is one of those where it's like the Lions haven't been able to stop anybody. The Ravens score. That's what they do. Even we talk about on their third, fourth, fifth running backs. Even the guys they're throwing out. It's like crazy that like the Ravens are always one of those teams. The Patriots are another team. It's like when these like guys get hurt, they always somehow have these guys that have like name value. Like obviously the Ravens have a Tyson Williams, but I mean Devonta Freeman had a couple carries the other night where it like looked like the old Devonta Freeman. They've got Latavius Murray. These are guys that are like a couple years removed from being like. I mean Latavius last year I think had one of the better years of his career in terms of his yards per carry, and you're looking at these guys where it's like the Ravens have developed a scheme where obviously it's like Lamar. Whether you want to call him the quarterback, the running back, whatever you want to call him, Lamar is always the number one option you have to defend. He's the number one that you look at. And when you look at that, they've created the scheme where these guys, they're just these holes that are just so wide open that it's like you can basically plug and play with these running backs. Obviously, it helps having guys like your top guys like a J.K. Dobbins, who's kind of another level kind of a running back, where it's like he can make this, transition where it's like he can make that move and then keep going. But then it's also just let's do like it's hard to explain, but it's basically like plugging these guys in is it's easier for a team like this or a team like the 49ers or a team like to have these kind of these schemes that are built by these offensive coordinators. So I'm with you, JP. I like the over. I think the Ravens probably do cover, but I'm definitely with you. I like the over. On this
Quick note on Latavius
well.
Murray before you continue. He was I liked him a lot when he was with the Vikings. I actually met him outside of a steakhouse when he was there. I was like in high school and I got a picture with him. He was really tall. He's pretty cool though.
Latavius he's one of those guys that like when you look, it's like that dude's like he's looking over offensive linemen. It's like that's a tall motherfucker.
Yeah, people in his crew just like started chatting with my family and talking to my grandma. I was like, yeah, our friend is Latavius Murray. I was like, what?
All right, let's go. Cardinals -7 at the Jaguars. That over under is 51.5. JP, I will start with you. The Cardinals coming off of that win against the Vikings. Do you want to talk about last week? Do you want to talk about this week? I'll let you talk about it.
I'd prefer not to talk about last week as much. We'll probably get there with the Seahawks, and I'm sure I'll talk about every single year with the Seahawks. But the Broncos were 6-point favorites on the road against the Jags, and the Cardinals are 7-point favorites on the road against the Jags. And I think the Cardinals are a good team, and I think the Broncos are all right, but they're not the Cardinals. They don't have Kyler Murray. Teddy Bridgewater's great. He's not Kyler Murray. So I'm going to lean Cards. I'm going to go Cards -7 here.
Kyle?
I'm actually on the total here. You talked about in the last game a team that lets everybody score on them and somehow also does put up points as well. And lets everybody score on them against a team that puts up a lot of points. I think that's what you're looking at here. I mean, the Jags let up a lot of points. People score a lot on them, and then the Cards put up 30-something points a game. So I think you got to look at the over 51.5 here. That's where I'm going.
It's tough because it's a big enough line that it makes you think. The Jaguars have obviously played last week with the Broncos. It was 23-13, 23-6. Yep. They covered. I think it was 23-13. Yeah, so, I mean, they put up 13 points, but obviously the Broncos defense, from what we've seen so far and what we expected, much better than the Cardinals defense. The Jaguars week 1 played the Texans defense. They put up 21. So, Kyle, I think you're kind of on the right track there. I think that this number 51.5, you can look for the Cardinals to, I don't know, if they put up, let's say 30, you're probably there. If they put up 35, I think you're definitely there. So if you're looking for maybe the Cardinals win this game kind of 30-23, something like that. But yeah, I do think I would lean the over for this game. I don't know if I like the Cardinals -7. I think maybe you could do some sort of a teaser where you've got the Cardinals down to a pick 'em and tease this to the over 44, 45.5, whatever that number would be. But yeah, for the pod, my official pick, I will go Cardinals, Jags over 51.5. Let's go AFC West. The Los Angeles Chargers at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs obviously coming off that Sunday night loss against the Ravens. The Chargers go to Kansas City as 6.5-point dogs. The over-under is 54.5. Kyle, total or spread here for you?
Here I go again. I mean, the Chiefs just can't seem to ever cover a spread, and I keep taking it, and I'm going to do it again. Chiefs, I'm on Chiefs -6.5 here. I mean, Mahomes bounce back game. I mean, but the last few games against the Chargers at the same time, when you look at them, have been super close games. I don't think you could really count that Week 17 game from last year when the Chiefs were resting everybody. I mean, they got steamrolled by the Chargers in that game, but I'm not really looking at that. I'm looking at how close the game before it was, but at the same time, I can't overlook Mahomes in a bounce back game here. Chiefs -6.5.
GP?
So this is the start of an interesting stretch of games for us on this slate where I pick against Kyle on 5 of the 6 games, just straight up opposite picks. So I'm going to go Chargers +6.5 here. I definitely see the logic with Chiefs bounce back game. The Chargers offense needs a bounce back game because they've only put up what they put up week 1, 20 points, 17 points last week against the Cowboys defense.
Last week's got to be almost a throwaway though, because like that game was like unwatchable. It was like a penalty every time the Chargers moved the ball.
Well, yeah, I mean I wasn't watching it, but the Chargers still have to start playing offense at some point. They have to. So I'm going to go +6.5. Show me the Chiefs against the spread the last 10. What is it, 1-9?
Yep.
I don't know. I'm just going to I'll go with the Chargers. We'll see.
I'm with you, and it's one of my favorite bets of the week right now. I love the Chargers +6.5. Give me the points there. Chiefs don't cover the spread. It's once again, you're talking about a number where it's like this could very easily be a game where it's like the Chargers are never really in it. They're kind of always down 10, 12, 13 points and just scoring something at the end or something like that. I think the Chargers could win this game outright for sure. But I think that this is a number of 6.5. Obviously, I'd like it to get to 7. Hopefully, it does get to 7. Don't know if it will. But even I think you could even tease this where you could tease the Chargers up to 13.5, 14, and tease that to the under of like 62 or something like that. I think that's something you could do as well. But yeah, for the pod, I will go Chargers +6.5, and I like it a decent amount. All right, let's go Saints at Patriots. Patriots a 3-point favorite. The over-under here, 42.5. JP, what are your thoughts on this game?
So you talked about overreactions after week 1. How do you read the Saints at all here?
I think last week is almost you got to be a throwaway again because it's like missing 7 defensive starters. I think it was 6 defensive starters and 1 offensive or whatever it was. But I think that's almost like you do kind of have to. I think they're somewhat in the middle of what we're looking at. They're I don't know, probably the 4th to 8th best team in the NFC, something like that, 4th to 7th, I think, something like that. I don't know what your thoughts are, but that would be my thoughts on how you look at those first 2 games.
Yeah, and it wasn't the defense that bothered me in that game. It was the offense, the complete lack of doing anything. I wasn't expecting that. Obviously, I took Saints -3.5 last week, and I'm just going to keep overreacting week to week on them. So I'm going to go Pats -3. I think Mac Jones looked decent. I don't know. Patriots here.
Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, you said it best. I mean, I think they're in the middle of the 2 performances somewhere. I mean, you had one of the best performances in the league week 1, especially defensive, and then come out week 2 and get blown out by the Panthers. It's like, what are you? But I think being somewhere in the middle will probably be good enough to cover a 3-point spread against the Pats. So I'm going Saints +3 here.
Yeah, I'm going to be with you on that with the Saints +3. I don't love it. Probably won't be an actual bet for me. Nothing on the total. I think this total is kind of right spot on. I don't love the over or the under here. But I think the one thing to note, and this can be like a DFS, even maybe a fantasy thing where you're looking at, is when you're looking at all of these projections for the Saints, Jameis does not check down to Kamara like these other quarterbacks did, like Taysom Hill did or like Drew Brees did. He just doesn't do it. And the projections are still there because Alvin Kamara can always have a 7-catch game for 120-something yards. That's always in his capabilities. But if he's going to be somewhat strictly of a running back or not getting these dump off, because there are certain guys that you throw these dump off passes to. The Vikings actually are a good example of how they used to have with Latavius Murray, where they would rarely throw it to him, but when they did, it was these kind of couple little dink and donks where it's like, go get us 4 or 5 yards. Let's get from 2nd and 10 to 3rd and 4. Let's make this, kind of a whatever. As opposed to Kamara was the guy, when you're giving him a dink and donk, you're hoping he takes it 70 yards to the house every time. So that's kind of what the upside was with Kamara. And with Jameis not really checking down as much, now that could change. We're 2 weeks into this, and that could for sure change and whatever. But I think that's something to look at, especially in the DFS this week. Is I don't know if you'd play Kamara anyways because the I can't even talk. The Patriots defense has been good, but like you've also lost that kind of reception upside that you have. And even if you're looking at that, I in this game, I do like the Saints +3, but I think a good DFS play this week. We saw him score last week, and he's been catching catching passes for the Patriots, trying to get like a joke out. He's been catching passes for the Patriots for 10 years at a minimum. I think James White's a good play this week because I think James White is the kind of guy that Mac Jones does dump off to guys, and they have been giving him some handoffs. So that from a DFS point of view, I don't have much in terms of DFS because I haven't really gone over the entire slate. But looking at this game, those were the first two things that popped out. But what I will say is I do like the Saints +3 for the pod, not an official pick most likely because I don't love it as much. All right, let's go, Kyle. Let's go Indy at Tennessee. Let's go to the AFC South. Tennessee is a 5-point favorite. Speaking of overreactions, well, this is an over-under 50. Speaking of overreactions, the Titans went from the best team in the NFL to losing week 1 to becoming a bottom team in the NFL to now winning again in week 2 and becoming a top team in the NFL. I mean, the Titans people have flip-flopped back and forth. Before we get into what you like in this game, I think it needs to be the way the Titans are built. They're just going to have some stinker of games. That's just how their defense isn't good enough. If there's games their offense doesn't click, that's just going to happen. But I think they're still going to be a good enough team to be in the playoff race and, potentially win that division down there. Obviously, them and the Colts are kind of the two teams you would look at. Is that a fair assessment, Kyle, of how you have to look at the Titans this year as a whole?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a fair assessment with the way that they're built. And another thing that's a fair assessment, I think. I mean, a lot of people are writing off the Colts at 0-2. I don't think you could do that at all. I think they're still a solid football team, and I think we see that this week. My pick for the pod, I'm not necessarily super confident in it, but for the pod, I'm going Colts +5 here.
JP?
I can't understand betting on Jacob Eason this week. I really can't. It feels like the Titans offense is starting to click now, whether you think it's a touchdown to Julio last week or not. They're starting to find the receivers again, and Derrick Henry decided to actually break off runs this last week. I think their offense can click again this week, and I'm going Titans -5.
Yeah, this is weird for me because I think this is just one of those lines where it's just so weird where it's like I think I just have to take the Colts +5. It just seems like too many points here. I like the over. I think the over is a good play. I think the Colts are built under that Frank Reich offense where they can kind of score. I'm not gonna say at will, but they can score just kind of like the Ravens can plug and play some running backs. I think the Colts can kind of plug and play some quarterbacks because they're not as many down the field throws. They've had a couple. Obviously, Pittman had one last week. But more of, I think you can plug and play a quarterback at least to get some points there. So I don't know if I'll do the Colts +5. That'll be my official pick for the week. I do like the over though, but Colts +5. That's going to be my official pick for the week. All right. Washington, the Washington football team, which maybe at some point they'll have a name, but right now they're the Washington football team. They go to Buffalo. Buffalo 7.5-point favorite. That over/under is 46. I forgot who I started with last time. So Kyle, I'm just going to start with you this time. What do you like here?
I don't really like either side. I mean, the Bills always have potential to just steamroll anybody, I feel like they did last week against the Dolphins. And Washington, I mean, I feel like last week was just a bit of an anomaly scoring wise for them with the crazy game with the Giants. I don't think anybody was expecting that game to be exciting, but I mean, they're great. They're a pretty solid football team, I feel like, at this point. I think Taylor Heineke is actually a good quarterback. I think that was a little bit of an overreaction of people screaming like, "Oh, Heineke sucks. Heineke's going to start," or whatever. He's proven himself to be a good quarterback over 3 games in the NFL now, so I don't think we could talk bad about him anymore. But I'm going the under here because I think I don't think they're going to score as much as they did last week, like I said, and the Bills are weird this year. They have blowout potential. I think this has potential to be a blowout where we're looking at maybe like a 27 to 10 or something like that. So I'm going under here.
JP?
I do think Taylor Heineke is a good quarterback. I mean, he did play well against the Giants. Kyle, how'd you like having the under 40.5 in that game? How was that?
Yikes. That wasn't good.
Is it weird to say that the Bills beat the Dolphins 35-0 last week and Josh Allen still hasn't had a good game to start the year? I mean, he hasn't had a great game yet. He found in wide open digs last week, which I enjoyed for fantasy purposes only. And other than that, he didn't make a lot of great throws. I think it has to start eventually, and so I'm going to say it'll start this week, and I'm taking over 46.
Yeah, I was looking at that total, and that total, it scares me.
It's so low for a Bills game.
I know. It does scare me. It almost thinks it's so low that it's like too low, where it's like you almost have to take the under. But I can't take the under of a 46 in the Bills game. But I'm gonna be with Kyle on this one. I like Washington plus 7.5. I think this is a game they can keep it close enough. Yeah, like I said this last week. I don't think Fitzpatrick to Heineke is necessarily a downgrade, or if it is, a big downgrade. I think they keep it close. So 7.5, yeah. I mean, I'm going to take Washington here.
Kyle was on the under.
I was on the under.
Oh, I thought you took Washington.
I think it is. No, it's
right.
I was talking about Heineke like I was going to be on Washington, but I ended up on the under there.
Well, then good. We'll be on 3 different picks for this game because I was going to take the under so I could be different, but I thought you were on Washington. So then there we go. So I'll be on Washington. You be on the under. JP, you're on the
over.
Bills or the over.
The over, yeah.
Can I get Washington and the Bills since you guys just took the total? Can I just take both sides of the spread? Like that?
Well, yeah, you've taken one of our picks every game thus far, so nice of you to be different for once.
Yeah, maybe you guys should consider that a blessing if you're looking at how our records are. Oh, Baumohl picked the same pick as me. Maybe this one actually has a chance to win. Maybe JP, maybe I'll pick 5 of your picks, and maybe those will be the 5 that win.
I'll make those 5 my best bets.
All right, let's Falcons at the Giants. I know I started with you, Kyle, last time, but I gotta start with you again. You're obviously the Giants fan on the show here. Giants a 2.5-point favorite. This over/under is 47.5. I don't know how the Giants are a favorite. I guess the answer is because they're playing the Falcons at home.
Well, yeah, the answer is that A, the Falcons suck, and B, the underlying thing here that I guess nobody knows outside of New York is it's Eli Manning Day. We're retiring Eli Manning's number on Sunday. I mean, I'm going to be there. It's going to be a super special occasion for me growing up with Eli Manning, but we are favorite. It's super weird. I never thought we were going to be in this situation the whole year, but when you look at it from a football perspective, I mean, we stood in our own way from winning that game on Thursday. That should have been we should have won that game by double digits, but we were just constantly standing in our way with penalties and dropped passes and everything. I don't think that happens again. Even Daniel Jones looked good on Thursday. He looked like a competent quarterback for probably the first time in his life in the NFL at least. But yeah,
sound like somebody else on this show that your quarterback looked pretty good. You guys should have won the game. Should have been pretty easy. Bit yourself in the foot a couple times.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the Giants at times showed what they can be, and I mean the Falcons have just been pitiful this season so far. I'm on the Giants -2.5. I think they get over the hump on Eli Manning Day. I mean, he was famous for starting 0-2 and coming back and winning Super Bowls. I don't think we're gonna do that, but we're definitely gonna go to 1-2 here. Giants -2.5 is one of my best bets of the week. Can't believe I'm saying that.
All right, well, we cut out for a second, but JP, you were giving us your thoughts on Falcons at Giants. Go ahead.
Yeah, so now I've delayed the pod a day, and I've also made you do more editing with my shitty Wi-Fi. So I did not know. I believe Ryan said this earlier this week, but the Giants have started 0-2, 8 or 9 straight years now.
I think it's 5 years in a row, and I think it's 7 of the last 9 or something like that.
See, these type of things would be nice to know before the season starts, so we can bet against the Giants.
The Giants just always start 0-2. It's just a known fact. Sometimes you win Super Bowls.
Well, I didn't know that.
So
I'm also on the Giants -2.5 here. I told you 5 of the next 6 were against each other. This is the one we're on the same pick. It's also one of my best bets, so that's not a great sign. But I'm against the Falcons solely because, or mostly because, I'm offended that they didn't cover +13 last week. 2 pick sixes in a row. That really hurt me, and I'm really angry about it, actually. So I'm going Giants -2.5. Love to be under 3 now.
Kyle, I'm gonna apologize because there's no chance the Giants win this game because all 3 of us are on the Giants and all 3 of us have it as our best bets.
Bullshit.
I mean, you can go through the stats. I mean, you said it. It's Eli Manning Day. Like the Giants could be 6.5-point favorites. I'm betting the Giants. Giants are gonna win this game by 4 touchdowns. I mean, it's Eli fucking Manning Day. I mean, we talk about mascot games in college or stuff. I mean, the Giants, and this is gonna sound like an insult and it's gonna sound like a shot, and I don't mean it like that. But there's very few guys that they can come back and when they get their jersey retired, it's actually a big deal. I mean, Eli's the number one. Eli is the Eli. He is the reason you beat the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl, whether statistically or not. He is the reason, but he is the reason you beat them, and he beat them twice. So the Giants are winning this game by 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. So we have Eli, and then we have Strahan later this year. So we're gonna have another one of these.
I was trying to think of and once again, this is gonna sound like an insult, but what other players? The only other guy I could think of would be a Brandon Jacobs. I don't even know who else. Give me a couple offensive linemen. Who that you would potentially be oh, this guy might have his jersey retired, or this might have a day of a Giants day where we celebrate this guy. I mean, there's just very few guys, right?
You're saying recently, right? During this last decade.
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say probably Jacobs, O.C. Umanira's in there, and then offensive lineman David Deal.
Odell.
Yeah,
well,
I'm sure
he missed his chance when he went on that boat.
Did JPP, did he win a Super Bowl with you guys? Was he on that Super Bowl team? He wasn't on that Super Bowl team, was he?
Yes, he was. He could end up getting. He was on the second Super Bowl team, yeah. So in 2012, so he could end up getting that too.
Back when he had 10 fingers.
Yes.
Hey, credit to him. Still been a great player.
With 8.5 fingers.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 8.5 or 9. I don't know what the proper with less than 10 fingers. But yeah, all 3 of us are on the Giants. All 3 of us on the best bets. So I guess the Falcons are gonna probably win this game. But yeah, that's what we're gonna be on. All right, Bengals at the Steelers. JP, I'll start this one with you. Steelers, they're a 3.5-point favorite. This over/under is 44. JP, what do you like here?
Similar to the Saints, both of these teams were overreactions in week 1. You had the the Bengals beat the Vikings, and everybody thought they were good, and then they threw 3 picks against the Bears. You had the Steelers beating the Bills, and everyone thought they were good, and then they lose by a touchdown to the Raiders. So it's a tough pick here. I don't like 3.5. I'd rather it was 3. But I'm gonna end up going the Steelers here, as long as Big Ben plays. I'm hoping Big Ben plays. But I think Najee Harris can score 1 or 2 against the Bengals defense this week.
All right, I'm looking at this game. I like the under here, the under 44. I think the Steelers defense has been good. It's almost another one of those where it is a little. I thought it would be 45, 46, and I know it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it kind of does make you think a little weird. But I'll take this under a 44. That's going to be what I'm going to take here in this Bengals-Steelers game. Kyle, now that you've got your computer charged, Bengals-Steelers, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, new spot, same shitty lighting here, but I'm actually gonna go Bengals 3.5 here. I mean, it's obviously questionable if Big Ben is playing, based on what I've heard he's probably gonna be out. It's gonna be a questionable situation, but yeah, I'm leaning Bengals 3.5 here, just because I think the line isn't as big as it should be. It feels like Vegas got something cooking here, so I'm going Bengals.
All right, Jets at the Broncos. The Broncos, 10.5-point favorites. Crazy to think the Broncos are 10.5-point favorites in week 3, but they've looked good. Over under 41.5. JP, do you want to give the Teddy Bridgewater stat, or should I give the Teddy Bridgewater stat?
Well, he is at home this week, but I'll let you give the Teddy Bridgewater
stat. Well, here, let's some teamwork. You give his on the road stat after last week, and then I'll get him ready for this week.
So if he started the season 21-3, and then after week 1 he was 22-3, and he won last week, I'm going to guess that he's 23-3 against the spread on the road in his career.
And let's do some more math. He was 35-14 as a starter to start the year. If he covered week 1 and he covered week 2, he is now 37-14. By my math, that's 73% of the games that Teddy Bridgewater covers against the spread at home. I don't like the Broncos here. I don't think they cover 10.5, but I have to keep riding Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater and the Broncos minus 10.5. Kyle, what are your thoughts?
I'm actually on a total here, because like you said, I think the number's a little wide. The number's a little low for the total at 41.5, but I gotta ride the under here. I mean, I believe it's the lowest total of the week, right?
That's correct.
It is.
And then, I mean, the Jets are just incapable on offense. They can, I mean, Zach Wilson's just constantly throwing interceptions. They scored 14 against the Panthers, 6 against the Pats. I don't think they're going to be putting up many points on the Broncos. I think you may be looking at single digits here. So yeah, I gotta go with the under.
All right, Dolphins, they go to Las Vegas. Maybe the 2 biggest party city teams, not the teams or the party teams, but the places they're from, Miami and Vegas. I mean, you could maybe throw LA or a New York team in there, but I think it's probably Miami and Vegas. So the Dolphins, they go to the Raiders. Raiders 4.5-point favorites, over under 45.5. Raiders, week 1 win against the Ravens, week 2 win against the Steelers. Kyle, are they for real, or is this kind of like a little bit of a fraud 2-0?
I think this may be a little bit of a fraud 2-0. I mean, that Ravens game was completely drunk. We talked about it last week. I mean, it turned out to be a situation where first game in Vegas, just absolutely anything can happen, and anything did happen. And then, I mean, I picked against the Steelers this week with the Bengals. Like, I don't think the Steelers are that great. So I think we may be looking at a little bit of a fraud 2-0 here. But at the same time, I mean, the Dolphins looked terrible last week. I do think we see a bounce back from them this week. I'm on Dolphins plus 4.5 here.
And obviously, needs to be
but
said,
Tua being out's obviously a big issue. So we'll see what happens. But I'm taking the risk.
And what is going on with the Dolphins? How did it get out that Tua's injury wasn't serious, and then he comes out with broken ribs, and it's like how does even if that's made up by somebody, like somebody in the Dolphins organization has to be like let's wait, guys. Like, we don't know the extent of his injuries. Like, we're 2 days out of it and he's still not walking. Like, that just to me seems like just how the Dolphins have been. It goes back to what we talked about preseason, cutting guys like Kyle Van Noy, guys like that are just like your captain, and guys like Xavier Howard who wanted out and now he's obviously happy and still there. But it just seems like it's weird because I think Brian Flores is a good coach. And he comes from that Belichick system of New England and how you run things. And Belichick's always been one of those guys where it's like they always get out and they get after their players, but he's also the first one in the media to defend his players too. And it's weird that we made it like 2 days with nobody saying anything about Tua. Like, if my quarterback, if they're like, oh yeah, his injury's not even on, I think I forgot where I saw this, but somebody brought it up that even like on the Monday night broadcast, like the update ticker on the bottom, it just said like, update to injury not serious. Like, if even if there's still a chance it's serious, you've got to protect your quarterback there. That almost makes me think that maybe they're kind of almost halfway out with Tua. Who knows if they are? Who knows if they aren't? Maybe this is a chance for Brissett to really step in and be the guy. JP, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I mean, you're talking about Tua not being the guy. Then the Texans need to stop having Deshaun Watson on the bench and trade him to Miami. That makes no sense that he's sitting there and not playing and not on the exempt list. As far as this game goes, I don't understand why the Raiders are a 4.5-point favorite with no Tua. Jacoby Brissett looked awful last week, and he's not going to keep the Dolphins within 4.5 points. So I'm going to take the Dolphins plus 4.5 because I don't understand it at all.
Okay, so if we're looking at the total here, is there any thoughts on the total as well? Because I'll give you my thoughts on the total in a second. I know you were looking at the spread, but is there any thoughts on the total? Because I have a weird take on the total.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you first and then Kyle.
So the Dolphins just gave up 35 to the Bills in a not great Josh Allen game. And so the total seems low unless they're saying the Raiders win 45-0, which they're not because they're only a 4.5-point favorite. So they'd be expecting the Raiders to win 24-25-20, and that doesn't make sense to me. So I'd probably go over.
Okay, good. Because I think this number seems too low to me. So I was gonna say I like this over. I was gonna go bet the Dolphins at plus 4.5, but I think the safer bet here is I'm just gonna take this over 45.5. I think that's a good bet. Who knows if that'll be an official bet by the time the weekend comes, but for the pot, I like that as a bet. This next game is probably the best game of the weekend, definitely a top 3 game of the weekend for sure. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Los Angeles Rams. It'll never be old for me to just say the St. Louis Rams, the Los Angeles Rams. The Bucs are 1.5-point favorites in LA, Kyle. That over under is 56.5. What are your thoughts on this game?
I mean, we may be getting the NFC Championship matchup here. I mean, I believe I talked about it in our preseason pod. I said this was going to be the NFC Championship matchup. So definitely excited to see how they match up. I do think it's really weird that the Rams are getting a 1.5 at home. So I'm going to go the Rams here. I mean, they've been one of the better offensive powerhouses we've seen so far this season. I mean, Tampa's the same way. It is a battle of the behemoths, and I'm going to go with the team that's getting 1.5 points at home.
JP.
So the offense played great against the Bears, not as well against the Colts. I think the Colts have a better defense than the Bears do. Bucs are supposed to have a great defense. They haven't shown it this year. So thus far, I don't expect the Bucs to lose games against great teams. I expect them to drop a couple here and there against bad teams, but I don't expect them to lose this game. So I'm going to go with Bucs minus 1.5.
So, okay, I was going to go with the Rams, but I agree with your take because we talked about this earlier in one of the other pods that the Bucs are going to seem to be one of those teams that are going to win the games in the prime time or in the slots that is, maybe that was always the classic Patriots thing, is like the games that it was like, oh, this is the game they might struggle with. Those are the games that they usually don't struggle with. And it's like the game at Miami, or it's like, those random games that those kind of teams would struggle with. So I've kind of gotten off off the side a little bit. I'm going to bet the total. I'm going to bet the over. It's probably not the right bet. It's the highest total on the board. It's one of those games where I love it for DFS. I love it just because it's one of those fun late games. Let's just bet the over. Let's just, just watch and root for some points. Who knows if it'll end up being an official pick for me this weekend, but I will go over 56.5. I'm pulling up a couple of the guys' prices right now on DraftKings because I was looking at this earlier. If you're looking to play a couple of the Rams and a couple of the Bucks, Robert Woods is 5,700. Obviously, Cooper Kupp's been the guy so far over the course of the first 2 weeks. He's 6,800. So I like playing a Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods lineup, even putting a guy like Tyler Higbee in there. But the guy that I like this week a lot, and I'm going to probably have him in some lineups, I like Van Jefferson a lot. Van Jefferson he's kind of played that Josh Reynolds role a little bit. But the Rams are one of those teams where it's like you always kind of trust McVay to kind of put these guys in these situations if he's going to perform, McVay is going to put him in the situation to perform. We always talk about that with Shanahan and like the running backs and stuff like that, where it's like these kind of coaches are these offensive gurus. And, if it's hard to say, because like you said with the Bucs, their defense can always get back to that point of like what we expected the Bucs defense to be, but it hasn't been there yet. And why would you think that it maybe is going to be this week against a guy like McVay, who cooks up that kind of offense? So if you're looking to play those guys, you obviously then can run it back with a couple of the Bucs. Mike Evans, he's 6,300, and then if I would look to play it back with Chris Godwin, he's 6,100. And then similar thoughts if you're looking to play Van Jefferson for the Rams. If you're looking to play that kind of guy for the Bucs this week, Antonio Brown is on the COVID list. I don't know if it's official that he's going to be out or if he's going to be here or not. But Scotty Miller is 3,100. So if Antonio Brown misses, I think Scotty Miller at 3,100 is definitely some good value. There, like I said, I think you can stack that game a lot of different ways, and I probably will come Sunday. It'll be probably one of my favorite games to stack for DFS. All right, JP, we've reached that point of the show. The Seahawks are 1.5-point favorites at the Vikings. The over-under is 55. I asked you earlier, do you want to talk about last week? Do you want to talk about this week? You're the Vikings fan. You go ahead.
I will talk about last week. You said the Bucs Rams probably the best game of the week, and this could also be a great game. Could also not be a great game. So if you want to talk about last week, you said it started drunk, and it did, with the second play of the game going to KJ Osborne for 64 or 69 yards. Yeah, Miami boy. And it never really sobered up. It's a huge shock that we missed a field goal to lose the game. As far as Seahawks Vikings goes, I'm going to watch the game with at least one Seahawks fan, potentially two. And it's never fun for me. I've never enjoyed that game. I really hate the Seahawks, and we don't beat them ever. And usually it ends in heartbreaking fashion. So 1.5 points doesn't make any sense to me. You're probably going to tell me that Minnesota covers because of that. And so somehow we'll lose by 1 point again. And that's really not going to make my day very, very nice. It's another 3 p.m. game, which I hate here because I can't do anything during the morning. And then I watch the noon games and I can't do homework. And then I can't do homework during the afternoon. And then I'm depressed at night and can't do homework. So apparently I have to get everything done before this game, and Seahawks -1.5. It's one of my best bets. Kill me.
Kyle.
First off, Ryan, imagine still having homework.
Yeah, right. Crazy.
That's a disaster. I mean, we kind of get to leave at 5, but sometimes it carries over. You know. Forgot to mention that Rams +1.5 was one of my best bets of the week. But now on to the next game. Yeah, I'm on the Seahawks -1.5 as well because like JP said, the Seahawks always seem to find a way to win this matchup. I mean, they're only a 1.5 point favorites, which means you could really bet the money line if you want, which I'll probably do since Seahawks games always end up being ridiculously close somehow. Same thing with Vikings games this year. So I am on the Seahawks here.
I will say, I think the Vikings win this football game.
Of course you do.
But I'm going to take the over of 55. These are two other teams that I think it's going to be a good stack for DFS. I think they're good fantasy plays in these games. I think, and this is going to sound stupid, I think this Bucs-Rams and the Seahawks-Vikings, I think one of them goes over and one of them goes under, and I can't decide which does and which. So I'm just going to bet both overs and hope that if I go 1-1, I don't think I'm going 0-2. I'm sure now that I said that I will. But I think I'll go 1-1 on these games, and I can't decide which one. So I'm just going to, for the sake of the pod, pick both of these overs. So that's what I'm going to be on for this.
Do you want some fun stats on the Seahawks Vikings history?
Hit me.
So
that was, and I don't mean this, that was the Blair Walsh game, right? The Seahawks?
Yes, that was the Seahawks. Yeah. Okay. So the Seahawks have won the last 7 meetings between the Vikings and the Seahawks. We've played those 7 games since 2009. 2009 was the last time we won, when we had Favre. And in 6 regular season games, 1 playoff game. In those 6 regular season games, we've been at home once in 2015, and we lost 38-7. And every other time, we've been at Seattle. We've been at Seattle each of the last 3 years. Doesn't make any sense to me, but we actually have it at home for once, so that's cool.
You're going to make me bet the Vikings. That's what you're going to make me do. But for the sake of the pod, I'm taking the over. But I do think the Vikings win this game. All right. This is probably the second best game of the weekend. This is the Sunday night game. Kyle, the Packers at the 49ers. The 49ers are 3-point favorite. This over-under is 50.5. Packers coming off that win Monday night against the Lions. 49ers coming off that win in Philly. How do you see this game shaking out?
Well, we get the Packers in prime time again this week. I mean, I think they're definitely going to have to come out faster if they have a chance to beat San Francisco here, because they came out super slow last week. I mean, you could do that when you're playing the Lions, but when you're playing the Niners, I mean, they're going to just completely shut you down if you come out that slow. They're going to end up putting up what they did last week, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Packers cover here 3.5 or +3.
Yeah, JP.
It's another game where I don't understand why San Francisco's favored by 3. I get there at home, so it's essentially a pick 'em if that old strategy holds. But I would lean the over on the total, but just my brain will not let me take anything but the Packers +3 here. I believe that's my last best bet of the week.
Yeah, I mean, this for me feels like one of those games where it's like you said, like I don't get this line at all. I feel like I know I'm the mouse and I see the cheese in the trap, as we always talk about. It's like, can we get the cheese out before that trap closes on us? Because I'm with you. Packers +3. I mean, one of my best bets of the week, maybe my best bet of the week. I just think that you're getting a field goal with the reigning MVP against the 49ers, who beat the Lions and the Eagles. Like, let's call it what it is. I'm not saying the Packers obviously have beaten anybody either, but you know what you get with the Packers for the most part. You're getting a reigning MVP. So Packers +3, and I love it. One of my favorite bets, if not my favorite bet of the weekend. All right, final game on this NFL Week 3 slate. The Eagles at the Cowboys, an NFC East tilt. Cowboys 3.5-point favorites over under 52. Kyle, I'll start with you because you are the Giants fan, the NFC East fan. Cowboys and the Eagles probably look like the two best teams, at least right now in this division. Whether that holds up, who knows? But are you looking at the total here, or are you looking at a side?
Well, we'll see about that. I mean, if the Giants don't stand in their own way like they did last week, I think they looked pretty good last week.
People always say that, and I love that because it's always like, well, but it's like, guess what? Like the difference between like not just the Giants, but the difference between those kind of teams and the other teams are those teams win those kind of games. Like when you get to the Cowboys, when we talk about it, like that Cowboys-Chargers game was gross to watch. But at the end of the day, it's like the Cowboys found a way to win that game, made a field goal, won the game. But that's kind of like what you're talking about is like Giants and teams like that, like kind of find ways to lose. And I think you kind of can't understate that fact that even when the Cowboys lost to the Bucs, still looked good, and then last week found a way to win. I think that's a big deal, especially in a division like the NFC East where it's always within a game or two.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing with the Eagles. I mean, they looked great in week 1, but everybody looks great against the Falcons. I mean, I think it's the same way that they looked good, and I mean, they kept it competitive with the 49ers to where if you look at the line we just talked about, Vegas sees them as one of the best teams in the league. So, I mean, I'm actually looking at the Eagles plus 3.5 here. It's the NFC East. All of the games always end up super close, super competitive. It's one of my best bets of the week, actually. I think they have a chance to win outright here, but yeah, Eagles plus 3.
JP?
If I had to pick a side, I'd probably pick Philly. Like Kyle said there, I like getting the extra hook there and not losing on a field goal. But I'm going to take the over because it's the NFC East and it's a Monday night game. Thus far, the overs have looked pretty good on Monday night. And
over 6-0 in primetime games this year.
Yeah, so there you go. Thus far, the Dallas hasn't had a lot of a defense. I'm hoping that they don't have the type of penalties that they had last week. And yeah, like you said, Philly hung with the Niners kind of last week, but they didn't look good doing it. So I'm hoping they look more like the week 1 Eagles than the week 2. So I'm going over 52.
Yeah, I'm with you, and that's one of my favorite bets of the week too. I love the over there, 52. I think this is a close, high-scoring game, 34-31, 31-28, something like that. I think that's kind of in this range that we're looking at for this game. So yeah, I'm on this Cowboys Eagles over 52, one of my favorite bets of the week. That's the slate. Kyle, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Final thoughts. Looking forward to being there for Eli Manning Day on Sunday.
And hopefully the three of us didn't jinx the Giants.
Please.
Good news is after how they lost last week, nobody can blame us for if they lose again. That's for damn sure. JP, what are your final thoughts on this week's slate?
When the Seahawks win by 1 and break my heart and I don't get them covering, I'm really not going to be enjoying football very much. So cheers to another 5-11 week and 1 and 2 best bets week for me.
Well, yeah, definitely glad we could end this podcast with some good, high, positive notes with some guys confident in the picks that they've made this week and excited that we've just got some football on once again in week 30.
I'll wear my positive vibe shirt next week. Maybe that'll make me happier.
Mine was very positive until you tried to turn it negative. I was looking forward to seeing the quarterback I grew up with's number getting retired. That is very positive.
Well, then you know what? Then we'll go 1 positive, 1 negative. I'll finish this one with the positive because, like I said, I think this is going to be one of those slates where it's going to be a lot of games that are going to be fairly close, a lot of high-scoring games that are high-scoring are always kind of a lot more likely to kind of have those crazy swings in it because it's like if it's only if it's a defensive game, it's 14-10 or something like that. It's like, you really can't come back. But if you're down 15 points in a high-scoring game, I think those are the entertaining games. I think we get a lot of those this weekend. And like I talked about, I think that Philly-Dallas game Monday night, I think that's going to cap off a good weekend of a lot of points. But, yeah, we're about an hour into this. So thank you guys, as always, for listening. Whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever else you might listen to the podcast. Just please helps us if you can just subscribe, like, share this pod or the video wherever you're listening to it. It's just, it makes it easier on us, helps us get some views and some recognition, and kind of gives us some motivation to keep going, and allows us, because the three of us can always talk through our picks to each other, but finally getting some people that are commenting and saying, oh, we like this or we don't like this, or we agree with you on this or we disagree on this. Those are always kind of the things we like. We always like talking football, and I always say that the smart people are the ones that don't think that they know everything and know that they can kind of learn from others as well. So yeah, make sure if you're on that YouTube that you're commenting. We're always on there replying if you guys comment on there. But
you got a show this week if you watched on YouTube. I mean, I was crisscross applesauce on my bed for a while. You got a
Kyle
show
looking
there.
super comfortable on his bed today.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of moved around a little bit today. We got a couple chats thrown in there, and you guys will kind of see a little bit behind the scenes production too, because like I said, I'm an editor, but I'm not a great editor, so I'm still learning as we're going. So, but like I said, thank you guys for listening. Hopefully it was entertaining. Hopefully some enjoyable, helpful information. And yeah, we'll run our picks now at the end of the pod. Thank you guys for listening, and best of luck this week, guys.